have, thank you for all coming to a topic that's dear to my heart. We, ever since I was a young child, I felt dreams were important, though nearly everyone I met said that they were fantasy. Took me till about 40 years old to finally find people that felt similar to me. So I've actively been trying to figure it out, but it's almost infinite the opportunities we have. Uh, we well, why don't you move it to the next screen, please? So we'll be recording just the presentation that I make, then we'll turn it off for question and answers. Questions, you can put them in the chat, and I want to get through the program so everybody has a chance to hear it. So it's, why don't you go to here's an overview of dreams. We spend approximately a quarter of our life asleep. And based on research, even though some people feel we don't remember any dreams, we generally have about 5 dreams a night. We may not remember them, but they provide us tremendous insight on future events, sometimes health, as we'll get into, connection with past loved ones, and ability to improve ourselves. So we'll go through techniques of how we analyze dreams, how we remember our dreams, and how we can benefit from our dreams. So next slide, please, Noel. This gentleman, Eisenstadt, has a great quote that most of the original cultures of the world use their dreams, though Western culture has shifted to a more scientific approach. It will go through some of the cultures and what they have used, but many of them would use it, the shamans and the leaders of the different cultures would use it for connecting with their past loved ones and come in with tremendous insights. And we can see it as it's been in existence for almost all recorded history. So please, Noel, move to the next one. The ancient Egyptians, we'll see it in some of the hieroglyphs. There was one of the pharaohs before he was a pharaoh, he had a dream that at the time the Sphinx was covered with sand, and he had a dream that if he uncovered the Sphinx, he would become the next pharaoh of the kingdom. And the Romans felt that dreams were messages from the gods. They had sleep temples, oracles that were created so that they would go there and work with experts to help them hopefully see the future. There's when I went to the International Dream Conference last summer, one of the professors from Germany said nearly every emperor of Rome used their dreams to help them manage the kingdom. The Greeks also used it. Hippocrates felt that dreams were important to help understand our physical condition, and there were sleep temples in several established in various parts of Greece that people would come and go through a cleaning a health process, and with amazing results. Then we also have, Noel, next slide, please. We have Christianity, which you can see the Old Testament. There are several examples, and also the New Testament. One is the story in Egypt of the 7 fat and 7 slim cows, which when Joseph was a young boy, his brothers threw him into a pit, and he was taken by slave traders to Egypt, where he ultimately ended up in prison because of not following direction of which he felt was dishonest. But based on his ability to interpret dreams, the Pharaoh heard about his skill, and he rose to be one of the highest leader in the kingdom. We also have Daniel when he was a slave in Persia. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that none of his priests could understand. So the Nebuchadnezzar told the priests that if you don't figure it out, I'm going to eliminate you all. So they heard of Daniel and asked him to come to Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar asked him, well, tell me the meaning of my dream. And Daniel said, I don't know your dream. And Nebuchadnezzar said, if you're so good, you should know my dream. And Daniel said, well, give me one night and I'll come back tomorrow and give you the dream and the meaning. So he came back the next day, and to the Nebuchadnezzar's amazement, he was able to share the dream nearly perfectly with Nebuchadnezzar, and he gave him the meaning of the dream. And Daniel served as one of the highest advisors in the kingdom for at least 4 different rulers. The Native Americans the medicine men, and throughout America, the Mayas, Aztecs would use their dreams. Many of them would use sacred animals. It's fascinating how they use the animals, and also to connect with their ancestors, which we'll talk about more in our potential in our personal lives. Bone yoga, which is a tradition in Tibet that, according to Robert Wagner, has been around for thousands of years. Robert Wagner is a famous author, maybe primarily for lucid dreaming, but was one of the uses that the bone yogis would use, and they would use it to overcome limitations in their personal life, to overcome karma. The lamas would become, but by the use of this program of a form of lucid dreaming, be conscious 24 hours a day in anticipation of going to the next realm upon death of the physical body. Noel, the next screen, please. So we'll go on into some of the people that have used dreams, which is fascinating. Why don't you move on? We'll go to Abraham Lincoln, who we just have one of his, he wrote his dreams. And if you do research, we can find other ones, but one of the most famous, this is an unfortunate one where only a few days before his assassination, he told his bodyguard he had a dream of him lying in a coffin. And unfortunately, a few days later, that came to fruition. Mark Twain, who was at a family reunion, and he took a nap and woke up and came out terrified with his family sitting outside, and they felt, Mark, well, you're just as usual embellishing about life. But he had seen his brother Henry, different visions and scenes of Henry being killed in a riverboat accident. And unfortunately, he about a month, I don't know, it was a month or so later, he saw that it actually happened. His brother Henry got killed as a kind of a captain of a riverboat. And the scenes, the visions that he saw in his dream were there in reality. So, Noel, please, the next one. Salvador Dali was a lucid dreamer also, and he would use precognition and lucid dreaming to come up with creative scenes, and you can it's fascinating what he's done with it. And another active lucid dreamer before it became popular, Nikola Tesla, was who according to some scientists believe, with his invention of the alternating current and electric motors and other devices, what created the basis for much, maybe 50% of the technology that we use today. But he would, when he couldn't determine how to make an invention work, he would use intention, go to sleep, and maybe not the first dream, but he ultimately, in almost all cases, he would come up with the solution to how to make his inventions work. Noel, the next, please. So Keith Richards, which many of you may know, of the Rolling Stones, he would go to bed with a guitar and a tape recorder. He preferred to use his dreams to help him come up with creations. So one night, or one morning after waking up, he said, I had an excellent dream, but I can't remember it. And he was disappointed until he looked at his tape recorder and pressed the button, and it was him singing I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which was which rose to the number one spot in the USA at that time. Still popular. And then Albert Einstein, as a young man, he dreamt of sleighing down large mountainside, and he was going so fast, he reached the speed of light, and he would dream and meditate on the concept, and ultimately came up with the theory of relativity. Next slide, please, Noel. So as you can see with Keith Richards and some others, creating a way to develop dream recall can be very helpful in our lives. So with dream recall, it's good to develop a standard or a schedule of trying to keep a similar time to go to bed, which I don't do a very good job. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. And which we talked a little bit about with Nikola Tesla, to set intention. The Bone yogis say that intention is the most important factor to help us come up with resolution of what we want to know. And it's good to do it before you go to sleep, but also it doesn't hurt to use it as a mantra during the day if it's an important message you want to understand. What I have found, and a few people I've kind of plagiarized, I believe, I don't remember who originally came up with the idea, but I find that when I have a dream, if it's important, I lay in kind of the hypnagogia state and resurrect the dream and remember the whole dream. And then I have found for years I would write them down, but my handwriting wasn't that good. And I found through others that recording them, like Keith Richards did, is the best way to, it also helps me remember the feeling that I had when I had the dream, and it's more complete to help me remember all the as much of the dream as at least the important parts. Then so I record it, and it captures the emotions as well. And I have found, and a few people agree with me, but I find more and more that do, that if you're very serious, there's things you can do to even enhance our dream memory, and that's a healthy diet and exercise. So I found that also to be successful. It's fascinating when I do more exercise, it seems to help me remember dreams even better. Robert Monroe of the Monroe Institute talks about a few additional ways to enhance our dream recall. And one is surprisingly, well, similar, walking. They have found it's very helpful, at least a half a mile, which is not too far, but I'm fairly lazy and don't do it all the time. The couple of miles would be even better. And I don't do it very often, but many people feel that walking with bare feet, especially in maybe the ocean sand, would also help that process. So let's go to the next, Noel, please. So interpretation of dreams there's several different ways. And one that I feel is very, Bob Haas, this is kind of a summary of Bob Haas's approach. And Bob Haas has been involved with the International Association for the Study of Dreams for, I think, at least 30 years, maybe 40 years. And so a tremendous man that I could talk volumes about. But we talked about, well, even after recording the dream, it's good to write it down to help crystallize the different components of the dream. And then as I do that, I try to make associations with what's happening in my life, and dream images, um, and that helps. And Robert Johnson, who was a protege of Carl Jung, says it's good to come up with several different potential meanings of the several different interpretations of each phrase or sentence or paragraph. And then once you've accumulated that, then it's good to go back and find the ones that you get. The best interpreter of the dream is the dreamer themselves. And I go back and find out which ones are kind of more the, as they say, the aha. That seems to be the closest interpretation or guidance. And it's best not to just forget about it, but then try to implement the message that I think we're very fortunate to have the guidance. I think that dreams come from a higher source, and who knows what that source is. There's many different speculations, but I think it's from the dreams that I've had. It's some of these messages are way beyond what I would have even thought. So they see the future, as we've found out, and let's go on to the different types of dreams. So they're small dreams. I'll jump ahead here. Just the small dreams are ones that we usually just resolving day circumstances. Some people call it day residue, but I think it's more important than that. It's helps us work through obstacles that we find in our daily life. And most of those are just resolved in the dream, kind of our subconscious. And so we don't even really need to work on them. However, the big dreams are ones, at least for me, some of them I've had for several decades, that 50, 60 years. So, and, they're fascinating. They're things that, at least for me, have been beyond my imagination. And there's a lot of symbolism, and it helps, at least they've helped me improve my life. So I think that can be very helpful for us. Then, so next slide, please, Noel. So we've talked about this precognitive dreaming, which current science believes is impossible. Well, most of the scientists, but precognitive dreaming, as you can see from so far, has been a situation that's happened for thousands of years through much, if not all, of recorded history. So I find it has immense value, and we'll get into techniques we can use to enhance that ability. We had Abraham Lincoln. I shouldn't say, many of us have had deja vus and other experiences where we've seen events that happen. And I've even had friends had precognitive of 9/11, portions of it, not the whole thing. And then friends that saw large waves just before COVID manifested. So, Noel, why don't we go on to the next, please? Robert Waggoner, who I mentioned, he's one of the most well-known lucid dreamers on the planet. He has great materials and training programs that, if you wish, I don't think it's critical that we do the precognitive lucid dreaming, but I think the precognitive can be very helpful. He has, you can see these steps that help us to develop, you identify different visual, audio, and emotional patterns in our dreams and see what's happening in our life and see if there's some connections. And it's good. It's good to keep well, as I mentioned, either recording and a dream journal so that you can compare them. And so we have also two others that Julia Mossbridge, who is one of the most well-known researchers on precognition. And so Julia has dedicated her life. This is the main focus, and she has a program, the premonition code, that part of the class is free, where you can develop your precognitive ability. And she also has classes and books, and I hold her in great respect. Eric Wargo he's a researcher that has done fascinating work with what he calls time loops. And it's a form of precognition, which, if I keep a dream journal and compare it with, and review it and compare it with events happening in our life, we start to see patterns of precognitive abilities that we can develop. And he believes, it's fascinating, that if we focus on it and develop it, we can at least come up with 30% of our dreams are precognitive. But it takes time and effort to do. But it's a tremendous potential if someone is interested, as we can see how people have used it in the past. So let's go on to the next, please. So nightmares, many people think nightmares are kind of catastrophic messages that come to us, but they're really, I haven't had any bad nightmares that I can remember, but I've had some that could have been but anyway, so a nightmare is a dream that leaves a strong negative emotional response from, it could be, big life changes or just messages that can help us improve our life. And so this lady, Linda Schiller, has spent decades trying to develop programs to enhance people's use of this. This is really a skill. Create a safe place in our bedrooms that we feel comfortable. And then you can, if you become lucid, you can modify the dream. And I'll share one of mine to help give an example. Or you can, if we're overwhelmed, we can always discuss it with somebody that we feel comfortable with and go back into the dream and change the outcome. I had a dream where probably 15 years ago, one of the few nightmares that I had, well, it wasn't, at first it started to be a nightmare. So I was in the dream. Some of you may have heard this, so I apologize, but I wanted to give it as an example that I was surrounded by thugs, a good 10 to 15 thugs with guns and knives. And I said, oh, this is going to be the end of my existence. And then I came to the realization that I was in a dream. And I felt, well, if these, I don't think other dream characters, which we can't change, but I felt that these were dream images. So I said, well, I'll eliminate them first before they eliminate me. And so I was able to accomplish that. And I think the meaning of the dream was for me to develop courage and stand up to some situations that, and to not just be, to not just cave in and stand up for our rights. But anyway, Noel, why don't we go on to the next, please? So here's another fascinating use of dreams that we talked about this with the many of the American indigenous people would use, but I have found it to be helpful for me too. But I have the belief that our past loved ones have eternal life, and they're can be helpful in our lives. So I'm not sure all past loved ones are trying to help us, but I think many of them are. And so I haven't really used the intention, but maybe subconsciously, because I was concerned about, for example, my father. And so he did come to me and indicate that he was even in a better reality than he was here on Earth. And so it's good for us to make ourselves open to these situations. It can be very subtle. And for me, it was a tremendous help in healing grief that I had to help knowing that he was fine. And so I know I've talked to many people that have used that also. Well, why don't we move on to the next one, please? So lucid dreaming, which we've talked about, is, again, I'll bring up Robert Wagner, but there's several other, like Stephen LaBerge, Stanford, the research on lucid dreaming. And also you'll see he developed what we call the MILD technique, but Robert Wagner says that the different things that we could use lucid dreaming for to help us make decisions in our lives. Some people just use it for exploring at night. Some people use it to learn how to improve their lives. Some people use it for experiments. Robert Wagner used it for health issue that he had with allergies, and by using his lucid dreaming, he was able to heal his allergies over 90%. So we can use it. A lot of people, well, like Salvador Dali, using it for creativity. It helps us develop emotional healing. We can explore the natural reality. That's can be fascinating. Spiritual practices, inner awareness. But so if lucid dreaming, I think lucid dreaming is important, but I like to just, rather than me always control what messages are coming, most of the time I just prefer to let the messages come and then because I think there's a kind of a greater consciousness, subconsciousness, whatever, that knows better what I need to know than I do. But lucid dreaming, I think, also has its place to help us improve our lives, as we've, how even Nikolai Tesla used lucid dreaming to create new inventions. So it's both of them, I think, have important ways to improve our life. So let's go to the next, please, Noel. So here's a few different potential sources of if you're interested. There's so many things on YouTube. One of my favorite is there's a lady named Catherine Bell that has a radio program every Saturday morning, and she has over 250 podcasts on different topics that you can choose. Many of these, like the Linda Scheller has been on the program talking about nightmares and lucid dreaming. So if you're interested, she offers a great selection of different topics that you can work on. There'll be a conference in Santa Cruz in October if you want to come to, and there's going to be a summer conference with the International Association of Study of Dreams this summer that it shouldn't be that expensive. I think it's probably a couple $100, and I think it's well worth it because you have so many topics that you can pick and choose from. It'll be on Zoom, so it's easy to get into. So there's so many different, I think that it's almost infinite potential that we have to, if we're interested, there's so many exciting opportunities that we have. So hopefully you'll find this as a good introduction to overview of the different opportunities that we have. So I'll turn off the recording and we'll open it up for questions.